Hey, welcome everybody. It is 7 o'clock Wednesday night. Time for Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome back, Mary Beth, and welcome, Captain Phil. How are you?
It's me, Captain Phil, everyone's favorite captain.
It is. Well, you're Captain Phil anyway.
Everybody's favorite.
Everyone's favorite Phil.
Everybody's favorite
Your
Phil.
favorite Phil. There you go. Actually, I have another friend, Phil, that I like quite a bit. So,
you might be me.
So you might be number two, Phil.
You might be number
You know
two.
what? Emotionally, this is really affecting me. I believe, Michael, you and I, we need to record each other's thoughts and then make a mixtape of our brainwaves.
Well, we don't want. No. We
Your,
don't need to do
work
that.
your relationship out.
I think that would work. How do you look at a wedding dress?
We're gonna splice high tech tape.
No, they're just gonna raid the fridge and eat everything in the fridge.
Yeah, and then
Hi Jeff, thanks for joining, and whoever else. I see there's a couple people on. So obviously this week we are doing. This was a Phil request. You've been requesting this actually for a while. Brainstorm from 1983. This was a Doug Trumbull film. So those of you who might remember that name. But before we get into that, I think we got some news and some discussion about news. And
we do. We're gonna. It's almost more gossip than news today, but I don't. Just a little bit of news. I am going to mention. We've had a couple of deaths. I am going to mention that Richard Chamberlain has passed. Now he is not truly a sci-fi actor, but he was an American icon. He's best known for the Thornbirds, maybe Shogun, and he also played Alan Quatermain in King Solomon's Mines and Lost City of Gold. Oh, and also, just side note, Richard also was the first one to play Jason Bourne. He did a 1988 television film. They did The Bourne Identity in 88. It was either a film or a miniseries. So
interesting. Did not know that.
Richard has passed at the age of 90. We have also lost Val Kilmer. Val has passed at the age of 65 of pneumonia. We know that he had been fighting throat cancer. He most recently delighted fans with an appearance in Top Gun Maverick, once again as Iceman. He was best known, I think, as Iceman in Top Gun. We knew him from Batman, The Doors, The Saint, which is one of my favorites. I'd love to do The Saint on this show. And my personal all-time favorite movie, Real Genius, in which his irreverent humor shaped the minds of so many Gen Xers. Val.
And I think we can't. Would be remiss to not to mention one of my favorite roles he played, which was Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Yes.
Which I swear he wasn't even nominated for an Academy Award for that. He not only should have won it. That was probably one of the best performances I think he ever did.
He killed it as Jim Morrison in The Doors too.
Yeah. No, he was a very accomplished actor, no question about it.
Yeah, just go check out his IMDb. It was amazing. And everything he did was amazing. Like he was so good in The Doors that he was Jim Morrison and he looked like Jim Morrison. And I think he sang some in there, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I don't know. Batman was not his best role.
Star Wars has dropped a new trailer today for trailer or teaser for Tales of the Underworld. This is a new animated Star Wars shorts. These are shorts. This is not a TV show, right, Rizzo? These are shorts.
I don't believe so. I think it's just along where they did the Jedi one.
Yes.
And they did so they're doing these little shorts. So there'll probably be like a collection of 5 or 6 like 10 minutes.
Exactly. It features Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane. It looks good. So let's all check that out. Strange New World, oopsie, maybe possibly on the part of Paramount or maybe on the part of the network Sky Showtime. Recently, a Dutch fan was on Dutch Facebook asking the Dutch network Sky Showtime when Strange New World Season 3 would come. He asked in Dutch. Sky Showtime answered him in Dutch, August 1st, which made Americans audiences all go, you never told us when we're getting, why you tell? Okay, so people flipped out. Trek Culture did a video speculating, okay, if Europe is getting it August 1st, then America must be getting it July 31st, I guess. And then the whole post
do we care at this point?
All got pulled. Like it all got taken down. So that was a huge oops on the part of somebody. Was it an April Fool's joke? No, this was all happening before that. Was there an April Fool's joke yesterday? No, there might have been one today. In other news, the 3rd season trailer dropped for Strange New Worlds.
I was hoping I was hoping it was a April Fool's. If you guys that saw it, wow.
Has anybody seen it?
Phil, have you seen it?
I'm gonna put
no, I haven't seen it. I was too busy watching Brainstorm over and over again.
I'm gonna put both of these trailers, the Star Wars and the Star Trek trailers, in the chat. Guys, check out the Star Trek trailer and report back. Tell us what you think. I
did hear something weird about them like doing an edit on Strange New Worlds for content, and I thought that might have been an April Fool's thing. Did you hear that?
I did not see that.
If this is for it's like you'd swear if you watch this trailer. The only reason I don't think it's a April Fool's is because somebody had to put a lot of production time into making it, and I don't mean just editing. I mean putting actors in costumes and stuff. So it's probably real, and it's frightening how bad it is.
It's scary. Yeah, I
you're gonna cringe all over the place. If
Yeah.
you thought the fairy tale episode was bad, wait till you see this crap.
Yeah, I went on Reddit though. I went on the Star Trek Reddit, a couple of the subreddits, and a lot of people were pumped. They were like, you know what? More power to Strange New Worlds. They're playing with it. They're having fun with it. They're just kind of going ape with it. And I was like, but did I want them to go ape with it? Did I want them to go I didn't want him.
Everything.
You know?
There's a crowd that's going to love everything. There's a crowd that obviously loves every show, even no matter how bad it is.
Yeah.
And the problem is that
it was
it's if you like it, that's fine, and they want to make, but it's not Star Trek. It's just there's nothing Strange New Worlds about it. It's like
I'll spoil the trailer. I don't think I'm spoiling anything. I'll just spoil the trailer. The opening segments of the trailer they're making a TV show, right? Did I see what I thought?
I don't know really what they were doing. It's like
they're making or discussing watching a TV show about
there
space.
was a Trelane reference or some kind of cue.
We're gonna have Trelane. In this series.
It just maybe I guess he's messing around with the ship, changing things, so that's how they're going to get away with the silliness. But
Bill, it was strange. Bill has a point. I've been complaining
that strange. That was the only thing I even said that to you. I said the only thing about the title that matches now is the word strange.
And I feel like I want us to pause this so I could watch it and come back and join this discussion.
Go ahead. We'll keep talking.
Just put an earphone in and just watch it. It's only a minute long or something.
We should have made you watch it before the show started.
Yeah, I should have warned you.
Homework.
I know that the original series they did a play, The Conscious of the King. And I know they've done plays on Next Gen, but there's just something about this where they're making a TV show or watching a TV show, and it's a TV show. It
seems too integrated to me. I got the impression that it wasn't just something side that was happening on the side. Exactly. It was something that was integrated into the storyline and was forced upon them.
And forced upon them, kind of like the singing. Kind of like the singing. But my first thought was, my God, they've broken the fourth wall. They've gone outside the studio and they are now wandering around the parking lot.
My thing is, it's like it's okay, I've always said it's okay that they have fun little episodes when you have 25 episodes.
Not when you have 10.
You have 10 episodes and you're not even hitting the genre right. Like you're not even you're not exploring anything. You're just having silly episodes. I'm sorry. It's funny because this is very similar because like the first season wasn't bad. The second season was okay. And it's just like Discovery, like the first two seasons weren't that horrible, and then it got
sideways. And then it went sideways. Same here. I have a lot of concerns. We are going to see Patton Oswalt, who I really enjoy, as a Vulcan, and a few other things going on. Kirk and Scotty will be back,
so we'll get to see them. All over the ship for some reason. Even we don't.
Jeff, the Star Wars trailer does look fabulous. Oh,
yeah. Okay, I like it.
You like it? What did you think about all that television stuff?
How did you like it?
Sounds like the music from that's classic Trek music, that dun 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 in the very beginning. Yeah. And it sounds like one of those Trelane stories, one of those super beings that live in the Star Trek universe that screw around with the humans.
Let's just assume that that's one episode and they do a Trelane thing and it's a little silly, but why would you make that your main trailer?
Entire trailer about it, yeah.
About it. It just
I think so they could F with you. I think that's really what it is. They want to mess. They want you talking
because they're not making
the last thing they want. The last thing they want is people not to talk about it. So if they tick you off and say I can't believe it, it gets everybody.
We're talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I remember the original series. We saw Abraham Lincoln. We saw gangsters with Tommy guns. We saw a lot of old Earth tropes. So I think this is what they're doing. They're just, hey, let's do an old Earth trope.
Though. We had 27 episodes then.
But we had 27 episodes and plenty of good, decent sci-fi in between the Earth trope.
And like things like the piece of the action, we know they always used to go back to old Earth.
I think that's the Achilles heel of any new show is that they're drawing on the legacy, but they're cherry picking it. So it's not spooling out the way the original spooled out for us.
Yeah.
Watching it in reruns like we all did. Very few of us saw it first run anymore. So I think that, it name checks certain things, but these are the things that happened a season into it, or 25 episodes into it or whatever it is. And here we're only, what do we got? 20 episodes? So far?
Bill, not even. Bill has a great point. He says it sounds like a short story from 50 years ago where an actor switches places with the actual crew. Yeah, maybe.
Well, that's actually, it's not the collection Strange New Worlds where they published the fan fiction. It was like the first collected fan fiction they published, and one of them was Visit to a Strange Planet. And it was the actors. It was Nichelle Nichols beaming into the Real Enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
And she starts doing that. She starts, it
But
was like Galaxy Quest. It's basically like Galaxy Quest, but it was basically a fan fiction from a Star Trek fanzine that they published in paperback form.
They don't. Here's the thing. They don't have.
Somebody in the chat will know the name of the book right away.
They don't have the street cred to do this stuff. That stuff.
Nope, they don't.
They don't have the street cred. They're just throwing this stuff at us way too soon in this series, and it's I don't know. It's I think that's what you were supposed to make, which was a very original series type show that was supposed to be episodic. They're Strange New Worlds. It's in their title, which they never go to. They're just leaning on old stuff, and it's like you had the opportunity here to make a really good Star Trek show, even in the Disco universe. And I think they're dropping the ball, and they're just making something that it's like, I don't know, it's like a TikTok video or something, watching somebody do something stupid and silly and hoping somebody's going to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, it does. The opening scene does look like one of those AI 1950s retro trailers that they do for Star Wars or Alien. It has
I'm all for having fun with these shows and having fun episodes and silly stuff.
Around episode 18, not on episode 4.
Well, the only thing that really bothered me, and this is my first pass, I'll have to watch it. I actually kind of like it. I don't know, I just enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed the trailer, but I think I enjoyed it that it's pissing you off as well. I think I like that as well.
I think pissing me off is kind of a strong.
It's just disappointing.
But the one part I really didn't like was the part where it appears that Spock is standing in the holodeck. And
we'll see where they go.
I don't need any more holodeck. In fact, I really feel the holodeck should be removed from the Star Trek universe. It's like the words
they used it was a crutch. It became a vehicle for stories that they would never been able to do, and it was a cheap way to do it, just like the transporter was a cheap way to get them to the planet.
But in reality, it's dangerous because the holodeck is something's always happening on the holodeck, and horrible things happen, and it's always breaking or the holodeck runs people over the ship or whatever. It's ridiculous.
And somebody's got to clean the biofilter.
Yes.
And that someone is
but yeah, I'll save. You know what it is? I think they're just tickling us with a feather, to coin a phrase.
There's Mara. Yep.
All the time. The card game.
All right. Guys, that's all the news I have, news and or gossip I have for tonight. Rizzo, what are we drinking?
What are we drinking?
We have a brain hemorrhage here.
It's just kind of an oldie. This has been around forever, but it's called the brain hemorrhage.
Oh, it is a brain hemorrhage.
It's basically peach schnapps with a little bit of Bailey's drizzled in it, and then some grenadine to give it, it's a good Halloween one.
It is a good Halloween one. It looks smoky.
It actually probably doesn't taste that bad.
No, it doesn't look smoky. It looks
supposed to look like brains. If you do it right, you can make the Bailey's kind of
float,
kind of like swirl, like it looks like brains,
clouds, like
you
have
know?
bumpy like clouds.
Yeah, have like
I
the
am
brain
not good at
curve.
those kind of drinks.
It looks kind of disgusting here.
Well, that's the point.
That's the point. Yeah.
That's the point. Hey, there aren't too many brain focused drinks, and so.
No, unless you're Hannibal Lecter.
All right, 1983. Doug Trumbull releases this
Doug.
film, although as we talked, it was shot in 1981. Phil, you wanted this. You have a love for this film.
Yeah, I think this is way up there. In fact, it was funny when we watched Gravity and when I watched Dark City. Gravity aged a little bit less for me, and Dark City stayed the same. But I think I increased my appreciation for this film when I watched it twice to refresh my memory.
Let me just hang on. I want to just interject since we're talking about the other three. Out of those three, Dark City was still out of the best one, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think I kind of agree with you, but I think there's just I feel that the author's the artist's brush of Doug Trumbull is really shows for this movie, because this movie is not only about what would happen if you recorded somebody's brain as they were dying. It's also about Doug Trumbull's struggle with the film industry, and the entire movie is kind of like he wants to create these amazing things, and they just screw with him the way the military screws with Louise Fletcher's character in this movie, and so they tear it all down. They blow up the production line at the end of the movie, which is exactly what Doug wanted to do with MGM, because of the way they treated this film after Natalie Wood unfortunately died. But I think there's two things I love about this movie. The first thing I love about this movie is, as a 1980s movie, it gives you time to learn the characters, who they are, how they react, and I really felt connected to the characters. So you're chugging along in this movie, and you're learning everything about Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken's character, and Louise Fletcher, and it's a brilliant casting of Cliff Robertson as the head of the corporation, who played Charlie in the movie version of Flowers for Algernon, which is a brain-related thing, where he took the drugs and became smarter and then lost his intelligence at the end of it. So I think that's brilliant casting on Trumbull's part there, which reminds me of how they cast the Chancellor in V for Vendetta. It's the same sort of idea, there. So I love that. And around the 45-minute mark, Walken and Wood's characters reconcile their marriage, and it's a beautiful moment.
I have questions about that, but yes.
And it's a beautiful moment, and you start to think, this is like the woman dying, the main character dying in the movie Psycho, because you're going along in this movie thinking this is a movie about this married couple, and it's not. It's a movie about what happens when you die connected to this machine. So the movie just takes a big turn, and it's like a real Hitchcockian sort of move on their part in the story. So I love that, and I really like the fact that the scientists in this movie seem to me, in my opinion, are acting like scientists. They're emotionally immature. They don't really know how to deal with their emotions, and when they're angry or when they're dealing with infidelity. And who knows who cheated first? Did Walken cheat with Fletcher first? Then that break up his marriage? Did he just ignore her?
Natalie,
you don't know. That's
Natalie's recollections. When you see Natalie's side of it, that's why they broke up.
Yeah. But now she's shoving it in his face. Like, he comes home from work on the day of his great breakthrough, and there's her boyfriend rubbing it in his face. He raises the toast to him. It's like, screw you, I do, and your wife, sort of thing, while his son is sitting on the piano bench with her, and it's like, meanwhile, that's his greatest day of his life. He just did this amazing breakthrough, this amazing thing, and he's alone. And I love that he was struggling with those emotions and stuff like this. So eventually, they get to that one point after they have the fight, when they make her sit and record her thoughts, and she's mad at him because he's doing what he's done for her entire marriage. He's like ignoring her, he's minimizing her, and she can't get that out of her head. And all of a sudden, it's on like Donkey Kong. You know, those two, just like boom, it just like goes off. And I just thought it was great. And I thought Walken was a great choice to play this character because he's quirky, and it's the Walken I know from Stephen King's The Dead Zone, from playing Annie Hall's insane brother in Annie Hall. You know, it's that Walken that I'm seeing here in this movie. You know, where he's quirky, he's odd. He doesn't know how to deal. He doesn't know how to navigate the big, huge world of emotions and relationships. He doesn't even know. He doesn't realize that the Louise Fletcher, you know, the main character, doesn't like him. She doesn't want to screw him. She's not interested in him. You know, she could care less if he wants her or not. Yeah. She just wants to do her work and smoke. That's all she wants to do. You know, so he's like a fly on the wall to her, and that's really shows up when they do the when the military shows up and he doesn't know what's going on. So he's
clueless. She's throwing a wall-eyed fit, and he's kind of clueless.
He's totally clueless because he's immature. He doesn't understand that part of the world because his whole life has been research and science and everything, you know. So but then it turns into this other thing, and the ending. Well, I'll tell you how I feel about the ending. When I first saw the film, I thought she was going to heaven. I really did. And as a 62-year-old man watching this movie, I said to myself, you know, the brain hallucinates as the organs of the body are shutting down and is being starved of oxygen. He could have just been watching the death throes of this woman's brain, and this is what it was hallucinating. So did it happen? Didn't happen? And that's why I started liking this movie even more again, because it brought back that element of uncertainty for me. I was like, I have to make up my own mind. Am I a person of faith? Do I believe he's going to the afterlife, or am I, you know, an atheist? You know, am I, you know, a pragmatist? You know, it doesn't exist. It's one and done. And once you're dead, you're dead. You know,
I hate to throw a bit of logic in a logic monkey wrench, but the device would, once the brain waves cease, the device wouldn't record anything more. So if her soul actually left her body, I don't believe the device would record that because it's not happening inside.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You know, they kind of start with her this shot of her supposedly leaving her body, looking at herself, dying in the chair. So you get the spirit leaving the body. But you're right, Phil. I mean, that's a good point. Is this just her brain manufacturing this as it knows it's dying, or is this actually what happens? Of course, the only way to check that is put it on somebody else who's about to die and see what they
should I do like
what I didn't understand though was Cliff Robertson's character was so adamant about not viewing that footage. Remember, he was like, that gets locked up, nobody ever sees it.
Also had a heart attack and died.
But they were able to. That's what they were doing. Remember when he went to go watch the tape and he started to have the heart attack basically induced in him. They stopped it, and then they were able to disconnect that part of the recording, the physical. He just saw what she was seeing in her brain, so that's how he saw the whole thing without dying. But remember, they tried to tap in from, which cracked me up. Everything was by phone. Remember, everything's
AOL dial-up.
Great. I was like, that's the best. I mean, that was the greatest.
We can't even get a JPEG to download. And they're like sending massive amounts of data.
They're sending all five senses across. Yeah.
But anyway, all right. But you know, so the other guy almost died, right? Because he
did die.
Well, did he? Did he end up dying? Yeah, I guess he did.
Yeah, he did die, and that's because the government, Doge showed up and was running this behind the scenes.
Right, well, the military basically was trying to run it, right, as use it for torture and whatever.
But Michael, you've done this. This has happened to you before. The one guy who's monitoring it starts to say to them, "Oh, they disconnected this part of the computer that does respiration and the heart." Yeah. And the dude in the white coat, let's not call him who he is. Elon Musk was there. He says, "I know what I'm doing, whatever." And the guy ends up having a heart attack and dying because You know, the guy
You
with
said,
the guy
wait a
with the
minute, they
bigger
disconnected something. Yeah, you're right. The one
the
guy
guy with the
tried
bigger
to.
paycheck always knows better than you, right, Michael? He would know better than you. You're the guy who's like working on this crap day in and day out,
Well, they also
24/7.
implied
But this
earlier
guy
that
knows better.
they
Yeah.
also implied earlier that guy really wasn't competent. Remember, he said, "I know." One of them knew who he was, and like I know you.
Yeah.
You were like they were basically saying you were a hack.
He wasn't.
You know, yeah. So
we get a good feel for
His
the
dad
fact
was
that
probably a senator.
Gordy's a little right in the very opening scenes because Gordy's the one wearing it and running around, and he's the one that's like, "Oh, let's hook it up to the monkey." Like, you know what I mean? So right away, right off the bat, he's like making the weird peanut butter and marshmallow and cherry and steak. So right away, you're like, "All right, Gordy's an idiot." Oh, also Gordy's the one that records the sex. So I mean, he's easily the office idiot.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's like that's what I said. You see him, I think it's like he's a lab monkey.
Well, he's a test pilot. He's actually a test pilot because he was a pilot. So because he was flying the simulator, so I think he's there as the test pilot, test subject for this sort of thing, and they chose him for, I guess, his stamina or for his skills or whatever. Yeah, and of course he's doing what pilots do.
He's doing what every idiot,
at least what movie
human
pilots
idiot
do.
figured out to do with
I mean,
VR.
to some degree, they're goofy and
Let's watch porn. Like, that's why he figured it out.
But, you know, we should talk about, of course, that scene where, you know, the one guy takes the I assume the orgasm part and loops it so that he's constantly having.
It's your first
over and
inkling
over
that
again.
the device may have.
What I love. Well, first of all, what I loved is he takes the tape and he cuts it like it's film,
and then splices it with scotch tape.
Well, honestly, I love that. Let me tell you a story.
I was working in
love
TV
that
back then. Well, at least in the late '80s, and we were still splicing tape that way. Videotape with tape.
Well, I love that so much because when my good friend Howard Margolin, the voice of science fiction from Destiny's The Voice of Science Fiction, started at WUSB. That's how they recorded their shows, on reel to reel, and that's how they edited the shows with a razor blade and tape.
So sound is fine with scotch tape. So, I'm feeling like taste, smell, sight, and sensation.
No, I did laugh at that because this is supposed to be so high end, and they're still using tape like we did back in the '60s or '70s.
I just that thing they're looping an orgasm, and I say to myself, when Howard saw this in the theaters, because they're doing what he did in the station, Howard was probably having an orgasm there, just for that. Because if you ever want to, Mary Beth, if you ever want to feel like you've lived 100 years. Go to Howard and ask him how he used to edit Destinies in the 80s. And for the next 3 hours, and I'm telling you this because I've been there and I'm trying to warn everybody else not to go there. I've been there and he will explain it to you in excruciating detail. So when that scene comes up, it's like, that's great. It's a loop of an orgasm, and Howard would have an orgasm from just the editing and the tape, you know?
So great. Just that when I went to college in the '80s, they were still showing people how to edit videotape that way and audio tape that way. So that was still a thing. Yeah. But it was just funny because it's supposed to be this super high end thing. The other thing I think which was funniest about, first of all, let's face it, any new technology that comes out, like porn is like the first people to really adopt it and try to take advantage of it in some way. I mean, we all know holodecks aren't there for training. They're
humans have one-track minds.
You know what I'm saying? So the VR, name a technology of AV type, and the porn industry will jump on it. So that was what cracked me up because somebody was going to do it eventually. But I think the funny thing that really I thought was great about it, after they find the guy and he goes to the hospital and he comes back, he's had like this religious experience. Like he's not traumatized by this. His whole world opened up. Like he's like a different person, which I thought was hysterical.
And then they never follow up on that.
They don't really follow up, but they're like, they gave him this leave of abstinence for like ever, but paid leave. They're like going to pay him because they're just like, just go away because you're saying, he's like, I'm golfing, I'm loving life. This was the best thing that ever happened to me. But he's like a hippie now.
Yeah.
Until he helps them hack into the corporation, and then once they figured out that he was there, that it was his phone, then all that stuff is going away. That reminded me so much of Larry Niven stories, where Larry Niven, it's either one of his short stories or in his novels, had this thing called a wirehead, where you would have like an input put into your brain.
That was Ringworld.
And you would plug it to the wall, and it would like stimulate the pleasure center of your brain, and people would starve to death.
That was Ringworld.
Yeah,
Was
that
it
was
Ringworld?
Ringworld, because the main character was a wirehead for a while.
Yeah. So this is like the same sort of idea. It's a real wirehead sort of thing. But
oh yeah,
the thing I took away from that was not so much the fact that this was like a porn scene. Like this is the only place in the entire film that had two female leads, and these two female leads, Natalie Wood, who's gorgeous, and Louise Fletcher. There's nothing really sexual about them pretty much throughout the entire film. Even the reconciliation scene with Christopher Walken and Natalie wasn't that really that hot. You know, there's only this one moment where they make this loop tape, and they could have, like, if this movie was made today, that entire sequence of recording the sex scene would have been 20 minutes of the film. You know, we would have watched that in excruciating detail and stuff. And here it was a blip because the movie isn't about that. And the women who are the lead characters in this film are real people. They look like real women. They're not.
But I thought I thought it was good. I thought it was good to put it in because that's exactly where it would with that technology.
Oh, it would be the first thing I would do. It's like, you've invented a machine that could do this? Yes.
It's Phil around. This. Mrs. Phil, keeping an eye on
you. No-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
This is what I'm saying. It's like, it's like if any technology, it's going to get up in porn. I mean, there's just no matter what it is.
Let's get real.
So what I thought was interesting was at the end, the whole course of the end, where it was a very Christian view of the afterlife, or at least what happens when you die, especially right at the very end when there's like what literally look like angels heading towards the light or whatever. And I thought of that, and I'm like,
either way.
So was he making a statement with that, or was he saying that's just what people think they would want to see, or again, like you say, was this just the remnants of her mind?
Who knows? I mean,
I agree with Phil. We aren't meant to know, I think. We're meant to interpret it ourselves, I think.
It's basically like 2001: A Space Odyssey. What happened?
Did you notice how similar some of those visuals were to 2001? I was like, Doug.
Well, Doug did
it, yeah.
There's a reason for that.
I mean, I really love it. And as she's dying, there's sequences where the machine is like centric to it. Like there are reels of this brain tape flying by. There's the clapper thing, flying by is like that, and miles of computer consoles flying by as she's dying.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how long.
Really a huge part of her brain,
Yeah, not to get super morbid about it, but I wonder how long.
Coronary it was kind of that thing where people say, "Oh, I saw my life flash before my eyes."
Exactly.
So she was seeing clips of her own life.
We see her whole backstory. Not all. We see some backstory.
A lot. There was a few what I felt were errors when they would play back some of the memories. Is the person would be looking at themselves third person.
Yeah,
if it was they're recording their brain, everything would be first person. So they I noticed they goofed it up in a few of the playback.
I don't know if it's a goof up or because they're diving in. There's like the entire her life. You saw her life, but she pulled out.
Not that specific scene, but I mean, even when he was playing back, like their marriage.
Yeah, they saw themselves.
And, he was seeing her. It was third person. Well, no, it would be first person. Even if you were watching somebody else's video,
was first person.
Yeah, it would be always from the person's memory. You never think
take the kid, his diaper's full. Like that was all first person, and that was correct. And then.
Yeah, it would switch back and forth. That's what I'm saying. It was definitely somebody wasn't continuity wasn't being contracted.
The rules of how this device worked were a little fuzzy. Like there was no.
Well, concrete. I mean, even if you're playing a memory back in your head of something, whether it's from your childhood or something from yesterday, you don't think of it, oh, there's me and my wife talking about this. No, it's from your perspective, because that's the only perspective you have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's
I don't know. I mean, I go back. It's more so to my childhood. I'll remember things from my childhood, and it's as if I'm looking at myself.
Really?
You know, like I have I think my earliest memory.
Those were films. Those were 8mm films you're watching.
Yeah,
that wasn't a memory.
So they were. I remember myself like walking around my block on a really hot day, and I wore like the wrong shirt, and I was like wearing a sweater, and I must have been like 4 or 5 years old or whatever. And I was walking around my block in Copiague, and I see that memory from that perspective as I'm looking out from the outside, looking at it, at myself on the street, sweating in this horrible yellow sweatshirt that I shouldn't have been wearing, but I was 4 or 5 years old, so what do I know? Yeah. So, but I don't remember where I was going. I don't remember, I remember it was hot. I remember I was walking, and I was about a block and a half away from our house in Copiague, and I don't know why I was. I think I was just taking a walk.
Looking this way.
I want to acknowledge some of the comments. Jerry was saying that just about the ending, that it was similar to the black hole, which is kind of true. Yeah, that had a kind of that weird colory, which I think they probably ripped off from 2001. Bill's asking how much of the phone connection was copied from the phone scene in Scanners. I don't remember that, Bill. I do remember Scanners. I don't remember the specific reference to the phones, but I did get a kick out of every time they put the phone in the jack and everything.
I loved it.
By phone.
I loved it. And I kept thinking about
the technology of the time. I mean, and that's kind of like, the big giant CRTs and, so there was this kind of mix between high tech and like future tech and current, whatever was current for that era of the 80s, early 80s. So I thought that was interesting.
The idea itself is ahead of its time, but the actual way they did it was within.
Yeah, some of the things that I found a little bit, and I know it was just for the movie, like the fact they went from this head rig that was like something out of Back to the Future.
That was her
first
job.
Time we see Doc Brown with the giant thing on his head.
That was her.
We go from that to this little within weeks.
That's what Natalie did when they brought her on board. They're like, "Are you okay working with her?" And they asked her, "Are you okay?"
I understand. And
that was her job.
There's whole degrees based on product design.
Gotta go fast. It's a movie. Can't be sitting there for.
I'm just saying, it was literally like weeks. They go from this.
Yeah, they went from a giant head thing down to a sleek.
And they were already on an assembly line.
And they were on an assembly line.
Manufacturing this thing. I'm like, you guys barely got through testing.
We do need to talk about the ending. But
they didn't know the thing could have caused brain hemorrhages for all they knew.
No product testing. No product testing. Just make money. I do want to talk about the ending because I have some qualms with that, but I have a super fast plot point. At what point did Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood realize they were being watched and observed? After they complained after the son ended up in the hospital and they were walking through a fit? Or did they realize it at the hotel when they were yelling at the guys?
I think they went to the hotel. That whole thing was set up to be
I think they knew it when he forbid them to watch the tape, because they stopped him from watching the tape because they knew he was watching the tape.
And then they wouldn't let him back in the lab. That's right.
Yeah.
No, when they went away to the hotel, that was all a distraction
was a setup
to make them think that they weren't going to try to get the tape. I still don't understand why he was so adamant about him not watching the tape, aside from the fact that it had. I mean, the way that Cliff Robertson's character was like, it was like almost like blasphemy to watch that tape. Not that it was dangerous, which it was, but it wasn't like that. Like he was like, nobody's going to watch that tape ever. Like, most people would want to know. That's like a sign, like what happens when you die.
It could be blasphemy. It could be this is something I can't.
Maybe that treaded on his religious.
Well, but that would have been better established. I think had they established that he was like very religious.
If they maybe showed him going to church once or twice.
Yeah, like what I'm saying, then maybe that would have made more sense. I just really couldn't figure out his whole company is based on technology and science, and you'd think that would be something that would be a breakthrough to know this is what might be. We actually found evidence of I
I think well, first of all, that might have been just underdeveloped because of what happened with the end of this movie, where Natalie Wood died before they finished filming the movie, and this might have been something that they meant to put in the story. Like originally, I believe their son was supposed to drown in this movie in the pool, and they took that out because Natalie Wood drowned. So they didn't want to have anything like that. So that was like,
joke.
Yeah. So we don't know. But on the other hand, it might have been like the sort of thing that happened in the movie Contact, where they didn't want this information to get out because it's going to totally mess with people's religious perceptions, and it was going to set the world off. It'll be the Jews against the Christians, against the Muslims, against everything, because this confirms the Judeo-Christian version of the afterlife.
Yeah, that's very, very possible, but that's an extrapolation. I wish the movie itself would have maybe given us.
If they had come out and said that to me, it would almost, one could argue the opposite effect, that it would be a unifying.
Or it could have been a unifying.
That people, there's always going to be people that fight it, but I mean, saying, oh, well, we were wrong.
I want to talk a little bit about where I think this movie fell down a little bit, where I questioned Doug Trumbull in his infinite genius. I'm questioning it. The end where they remotely ruin the production line, that was a complete tonal change. Like, this movie was a very serious movie, and suddenly you get to that section, that scene, and it was like there was slapstick and sound effects, like goofy little sound effects, and it was oddly, wrongly comical, I think. And then you cut back to Christopher up at Kitty Hawk.
Having this religious experience.
Having a religious experience. It was very odd in that moment.
I think it was trying to like break it up so it's not a whole single thing of walking, breathing heavy, and gazing off into the sky, next to a payphone, at Kitty Hawk. So they wanted to break it up and tempo it up a little bit. So again, they had trouble finishing this movie because MGM pulled the plug when Natalie Wood died. This may have just been the way Doug wanted to finish it, and he fought with them for 2 years to get this movie released. Seeing them trash those things, I believe in Doug's mind, is him. That's how he felt about the film industry after this. And he didn't go back to make films after this. He went and did.
No, he did.
He did the Back to the Future ride at Universal Studios, which is close to what this film he wanted for this film. He wanted this film to be an experience where you're in the movies and you're watching a movie, and then all of a sudden we're seeing what's happening when your brain is hooked to the machine, and the screen, because this happened in the theater. I saw this in the theater. It expands. So you're watching a film that's in the theater this big. And then when you put on the brain machine, you're watching a film that's this big.
Yeah.
And then it goes back and forth like that. And he wanted that experience. And when we watched it together here, when Annette and I watched it together, Annette said to me, it's like the ride Soaring at Disney World, where you're sitting in the hang glider and you think you're really flying, but you're really just sitting in there watching a movie. On a seat that's going up and down a little bit, and there's a fan blowing in your face. But it's like that whole virtual reality experience. It's virtual reality without the virtual reality goggles. And that's what Trumbull was trying to do, and that's what he wanted to do with film, and he was experimenting with different sorts of cameras and things like that. So that's where this was headed. And the whole thing just became a crap show when she died, which was a tragedy. It was just awful, because I think this is a great film for her.
It's supposed to be her comeback, yeah.
Well, I thought, I loved her in West Side Story. Absolutely adore her. Great. But I think she's so different in this scene. She's just playing like one of this. She's playing. Her emotions are like the rest of the scientists in this movie. She's a scientist as well. She's not stupid, but she's also emotionally, not mature like Walken is. They're not. That's where they lack, and they just can't handle it. And it took this machine for them to overcome that. And it happened really quickly, for Walken and Wood. It happened really quickly in the movie. I assume in my mind, they had a long weekend. That they were like playing these games for 3 days straight.
Yeah, that's what I
With the kids.
actually I figured longer than a weekend. I expect, that all happened over.
The scene though, getting back to the original comment about the factory being destroyed was first of all that it was it was again a very high suspension of disbelief that she could remotely control the whole factory, even with a master shut off that she somehow could override by a phone line. That was anything knows anything about anything technology wise or factory. He's like, no, that's just, and I was kind of impressed that I don't, that the factory notice was completely automated.
Supposedly,
there was nobody there other than a technician watching the stuff. And what kind of cracked me up was if you're going to a full automation, again, your factory should be running 24 hours a day. You don't have a time when it's shut down. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point of automated factories, is that you don't need to shut down. They can run all day, all night, just keep producing whatever. So that was kind of I thought a niggle on my part. Again, not anything I would really hold against Doug. I mean, it's just those are things that struck as I'm watching it that pops into my head. The foam was kind of ridiculous. I agree.
Yeah.
Why did this factory that builds
the one robot
had
big
buckets of water activated foam?
Yeah, exactly. The one robot's attacking and it's kind of giggling. You have to listen, but it is. That tone kind of wasn't the right tone.
It was a little silly.
I think that's just a part of the soundtrack. I don't buy that the robot.
You know what I did notice in that scene?
Because they're Waldos. They're not even full robots. They're just Waldos. They're just arms.
But when they get the fire extinguisher and they break through the glass to get through, did you notice it was supposed to be reinforced glass, which has the wire in it?
The wire, yeah.
Which is supposed to be to stop exactly what they were doing, which was to bash through it, which just break the glass and get through. The wire would stop you. But the glass just broke through because it really wasn't that. It was fake glass. It was just made to look
like sugar.
I'm like, yeah, whatever it was, but I'm saying it didn't have the wire in it. Otherwise, they would have never got. They would have never got through, but it would have slowed them down significantly. That's the point of that. In that, it's a security thing. That's why the wire's in the glass in the first place. It's not a radio antenna. So, anyway,
yeah, I mean that didn't bother me as much. It was funny when I went through that sequence again, and like I said, I sat through the movie twice this time. I remembered the whole let's call it the Stargate sequence, when he's attached, and then having that religious experience. I remembered it longer, and it was shorter. I remembered it being, long, like the Stargate sequence in 2001: A Space Odyssey. I just remembered it in my mind.
Or something?
Say again?
Did this thing get a director's cut?
No. I think this is just my mind playing tricks on me, that I was so focused on that I remembered it. I remembered it being longer, and it really wasn't. It's like, you're right. It was broken up with these segments at the factory, and there's two reasons for that. They felt the pacing wise, they wanted to break up that sequence. Maybe maybe that's the only footage they had of the effects and Christopher like having that religious experience. Maybe that's what they had, because the movie was done and he didn't come back to it. So maybe there's the amount of footage he had for that. So that's what I'm guessing there.
Let me ask you this in general about the film. One thing I noticed, the pacing seemed a little odd to me. It seemed like it hit the ground running very fast in the beginning, right? We get it. They're in the lab. He's getting the things.
Here's the relationship status.
The breakthrough happens. That breakthrough happens in the first 10 minutes. They've got this thing. They figured it out, and they get to the point where I guess it's right. Maybe by the I don't know if she's even died yet, but it seems like the whole thing takes like a very like you're at the bottom of this curve of the wave, and it doesn't really. It like sits there for like a half an hour before it starts to pick up again. I just felt that there was a very large slow section in the middle of the movie, and I'm thinking this could have been an hour. I know you're saying there's a lot of character development.
I like that, because I like that because that's where I really felt like I had a chance to learn these characters and to learn them, and yeah, that was a real jumpstart. The opening sequence. I love the opening sequence. I think of that opening sequence the way I think of it as the opening sequence to The Road Warrior, the second Mad Max movie, when they do the voiceover. Then the next thing you know, you hear the engine roaring, it's black, and then you're pulling out of the air intake of the car, and you're there and you're flying. And that's exactly the same thing that happens in this movie. You're in this, little wavy thing, and all of a sudden it pulls, he pulls out, and the whole lab is rotating. And it was just like, where am I? It's just a great effect and a great place to do that. But then it takes 45 minutes to teach us who Louise Fletcher's character is, who Christopher Walken is, who Natalie Wood's character is, to a lesser extent, Cliff Robertson and a few of the other players. Not so much, I guess the guy with the loop tape, you learn a little bit about him as well. He's kind of like a sad sack because he's not a scientist and he's got that bad suit on and everything. And he wants to be special. He wants to be important, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's the guy who empties the garbage cans at the end of the day. That's who he is.
It takes time to introduce a lot of, not even plot points, but just a lot of subplots that don't ultimately pay off. In the end, the movie's about Christopher Walken's obsession with watching that tape. He wants to see that tape. And so do I care that the military wants it? Do I care that he may or may not have had a relationship with Louise and he was broken up with Nat? Like, there's just a bunch of things that go on. Do I care that the one guy looped the thing and then had his own health issues? Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of little subplots that go on that don't necessarily, it carries the story forward, but then don't necessarily pay out at the end.
Yeah, I take your concept and I tweak it a little bit. And my take on that is, it's about what would happen if I could really know you, like really know what you think, really know how you feel, really feel what you feel. How would that affect me? How would that affect you, our relationship as friends?
I think.
What would you think of me? What do I think of you?
But
how would things progress?
Does Natalie know him? Because at the end, she's like, he's already like, well, I don't know what's really going on. But like at the very end, do they? Do Natalie and Christopher know each other that well? But she's like, she
thinks so. She thinks so because this was so important to her that the kid's still in the hospital. And they're running off playing war games with Matthew Broderick. So,
I think they could have though. I think they could have made the ramp more even. Like, I think they could have started out a little blip, and then maybe more develop. She dies, and then at that, what I'm saying? Because she dies, and then he tests it, and then it's like this, like you said, they go into this personal, thing, and it's like I would have rather seen that tension keep to ramp up till we got to the point where he finally gets to watch or view the video or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know. That's just a personal maybe.
And why does he want to watch that tape?
Trumbull by any means, but
Oh, it's obvious why he wants to watch the tape. He's a scientist.
Chris
LaRoche this is what his life is. His life's work is to discover the unknown. So of course,
but I think the pacing was affected by her death in the middle of filming.
He had the bulk of the filming done. What he did is used her sister as a stand-in for some behind the over the shoulder shots and some dark profiles and stuff. But the bulk of Natalie's filming actually was done.
Yeah. And I'll go back to that. I think the high point of that is when they reconcile. I love that scene. I love the music in that scene. I love the fact that he's able to play piano. She's playing and then she records herself playing, then he can play. I think it was wonderful. It was
another aspect that they didn't flesh out because they implied that if you watch somebody having this experience, that you retain it. That remember he said to his son, "This will teach you the 9th grade in 10 minutes." Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But that would have been an interesting thing to see that they can actually, like you said, here's a guy playing Mozart's whatever, and then the guy and then he goes and he can just do it. Because it's now in his brain, you know what I'm saying? Even if he's just doing it by rote.
Yeah, so that's like John.
That's
like really cool. Like he has her muscle memory.
Yeah,
he has her muscle memory because
unrelated or quasi-related side note about that scene, Phil though, is they had great chemistry or reasonably good chemistry. Like they were good with each other. They were clearly very close with each other. And no wonder there were rumors after the poor girl died.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher was on the boat that night. No wonder there were rumors that those two had been having an affair. They were not. I don't believe they were. And Doug Trumbull's no, I don't think they were either.
The whole, not to go down that road, but there's still,
there's still questions.
Mystery of her death. And
the other crazy rumor about this movie is that. Yeah, the other crazy rumor about this movie is that very end scene where she's like, "You promised." They were both drunk that night, but I don't know. I mean, we'll never know. Like, we'll never know what was really happening. It's just such a quirky little film. So many quirky little moments that either all add up to something special, or it just become very disjointed.
Do we know?
I think for me, it comes together, and I think it's because it's like an old style film. It's not done in this, there has to be something exciting that happens every 8 minutes in a film. For me, it's like it spools out.
Car chase.
Yeah, it's nice and slow. And then I love the parallel between. There's a great parallel because his final triumph, or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the movie happens at Kitty Hawk, which is like an example of what happened with aviation. So like the Wright brothers, had the first powered flight there, and 8 years later, they were using airplanes to kill people, and he invents this machine where you can connect to another person and learn and everything, but they're going to use it to kill people, and there's like a great parallel thing there.
He was massively naive to not see that.
Oh, well, yeah. And he was naive, yeah.
And of course, you guys that didn't know that was Tai Win, right? Kai Win.
That's Kai Win, yeah. And you know what? For my money, she's the best thing about this movie. She has had my attention every time she was on screen. I loved her.
She nailed it, and everything about her. It's this character. It's the scientist, and it's perfect. Absolutely,
she definitely fits the role well. By the way, this film this was actually considered a failure. It was $18 million to make, and only
was a failure. Louise won. What did Louise win? She won, I think, a Saturn for Best Actress for this movie.
I think so, yeah.
Yep, and James Horner won a Saturn for Best Music. It was nominated for other things, but didn't win.
All right.
I really do like Horner's music in this a lot. I think because of the way he worked around the classical, the string quartet. I didn't look up what quartet it was, but I really liked how that came together, how he went in and out of it. And I like the fact that he went atonal in a lot of sequences. And I like that a lot. I think it really fits with it. And his later work, I feel he I said this to you earlier. I said I feel like he plagiarizes himself, but to me, this score seems very original.
They all do, but there's even moments of this score that seem familiar. Like, oh yeah, I think he's played off this before. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what he did before this. I mean, this was this might have been. This was a very early film of his. This is before he scored Wrath of Khan.
Just barely.
Yeah. So. And what else did I want to say about that? And just a couple of side notes. I mentioned, this is a lot like War Games, but it's also a lot like Firefox. Do you remember the film Firefox?
Yeah, with Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Firefox is like there's the Russians have built a jet fighter that you can fly with your brain, like you can control it with your brain.
You had to think in Russian.
Yeah. So the Americans don't have it. So this is a novel. This was like a spy suspense novel by Craig Thomas called Firefox, and so Clint Eastwood goes to Russia and he steals the plane, and that was the whole thing. And it's a fun movie, but it has that same effect where he's controlling the weapon system with his mind.
The thing, and we could do Firefox, but the problem with that movie was I think I did see that in the theater, and it was a little disappointing. Because again, I think they oversold the jet part of it.
Yeah.
Because it was more like a weird James Bond with less action, because as he's in Russia and in Moscow and stuff, until you get to the very end when he actually steals the plane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they were making it like the whole movie was stealing the plane.
I'm just gonna go ahead and add Firefox to our list.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth reviewing.
I mean, I'm
that
taking
great of a
this
film, I
as
think,
the
but
teenager watching it that I
Yeah.
was, not an adult. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to see the jet fighter movie. You know?
I tell you, the part I love is the part where the submarine makes a runway and he lands so they can refuel from the submarine. And I thought that was brilliant. And then when the plane takes off and the Russians are like right behind him, they turn it into a scientific weather base or whatever.
It has merit. Don't get me wrong. The movie in itself has merit. I just, as a teenager watching it, I was like, so when do they get to the stealing the plane part?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
because I don't know how much longer we're going to go, but two things
we're
I
pretty
wanted
much
to
at
add.
the end of the hour. Yeah, I want to start wrapping things up.
The filming this movie took place in and around Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the house where they lived is a real house, and they like filmed there for months
with the pool in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's called It's the Chapel Hill house. It's called the Triangle House. And if you look up Triangle House in the movie Brainstorm, you can read about the house. It's kind of interesting, where they show the different stuff there. But and Mary Beth, you're gonna love this. There is another film called Brainstorm. Okay, and it premiered in 1965. And are you ready?
Yes.
It starred Jeffrey Hunter.
Oh, you're kidding.
And Anne Francis.
Oh my God.
Star Trek and Forbidden Planet in the same movie.
Oh wow.
And it was directed by William Conrad.
Oh wow. They will reunite very quickly. A year later, I guess. Very nice.
So I'm like, I want to see if I can get this from the library or something. I don't think I can find it streaming for free. But Brainstorm, it's like a crime. It's somebody like commits a murder, and then to get out of it, he pretends to be crazy, and he's institutionalized. But that really, whatever. I saw a few clips from it when I was like prepping for this. But when I saw Jeffrey Hunter and Anne Francis in the same movie, it's like I have to tell them about this.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Well, that was actors. That was
they working actors. Of course, they're all working together.
All right,
so 1965 is right when he did. It's right when he did the pilot to Star Trek.
Yeah,
so cool. It's that Jeffrey Hunter. It's before they put him in that chair with the blinky lights.
And even that's not that
Jeffrey Hunter. All right, wrapping this up. It was a good movie. Too bad it didn't do well. It was interesting at the time. Obviously, Phil likes it quite a bit. I don't dislike it. It's certainly not high on my list, but it had some merit. I think it made some interesting points overall. So,
same.
On that note,
excitement is the best part of this movie. On that note, Roy is celebrating on Friday night. This Friday night, he's celebrating 5 years. His 5-year anniversary of doing Roy's tie-dye sci-fi. Everybody tune in to tell him happy anniversary.
We're not far behind.
This coming episode of Roy's tie-dye sci-fi will be broadcast via the Brainstorm machine. So you'll be connected to Roy's brain when you do it.
I don't want to be connected to
Roy's feeling while he celebrates his anniversary.
Nobody wants to know what's going on in Roy's brain.
You can watch Roy play a string quartet.
Yes. Phil, what do you have coming up on WUSB Stony Brook?
Captain Phil's Planet is tomorrow from 4 to 5 o'clock. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. I have a potential interview that may or may not happen from the band Magic Pie, but I think that might happen on Friday night, Freeform, which is from 9 to 11. I have to see if those guys are available. I've been busy this week watching Brainstorm over and over. But tune in, plus the fact that we are in Radiothon, so tune in and be generous. I'll be on tomorrow, noon to 2 with Bill McNulty, 4 to 5, My Planet, 9 to 11:30 Friday night Freeform, maybe Magic Pie. And
maybe
Magic Pie from Norway, look them up, great band, 30-minute tracks. I love them. They're great.
And Rizzo, what do we have? Do we know?
We don't know. We don't know what we're gonna do next week. I am actually on my way to Indiana Saturday for 3 weeks of training. So I will have time at night. It all depends on the internet. and how much internet we have to available. It should be fine, but just in case, just be aware that there's always a possibility we're gonna have to take a little sabbatical. But I will come up with something fun and light. I don't know what it'll be. It'll be something. It'll be something, maybe.
Well, I have to thank you very much. I've been bugging Mary Beth to do this movie for, what is it, 2 years now?
A long time, maybe all 5 years.
Yeah, but it was very nice of you, and I love this movie, and because I love it, I think everyone else should love it too.
We love discussing it with you. I actually thought this movie has a lot of interesting.
Yeah, no, it was a good one to do. I don't know if Roy ever did it. Did Roy do it? I don't know if he did or not. But
no, I don't think so.
No, so so it's an interesting. It's one you mentioned it that I'm like, oh, that's from the Wayback Machine. I do remember it. Yeah, so it was kind of in the
one last quick fact: the Angels was one person. They were standing in a parking lot with these. It was like I guess the flag girl in a marching band. That was the sort of thing, waving these white sheets, and just repeated over and over and over again. That's how he did it. So I have the issue of Cinefantastique where they did.
He is the special effects guy. So
Doug would know how to do it. Yeah.
So when you see those Angels again, it's just one gal in a parking lot waving those things. It's awesome. So. What's not to love? What's not to love about that?
All right. On that note, we will say good night. Live long and prosper. And as always, may the force be with you. Always. I think I said that. Good night, folks.